So in the meantime, Frank is living this powerful spiritual life of deep prayer, daily Mass. He began, I think in 1914 or 1915, to pray the office every day in Latin. And it used to take him at least an hour and a half, and his Latin, he had to brush up on his Latin to become conversant with the office. But he said that every day he never missed a line of the Divine Office, all his life long. He began, I think, 1915 was his first trip here. On the picture, he went to Lough Derg in County Donegal. Now, Lough Derg is not for the faint-hearted. It's a tough place of pilgrimage, if you've heard of it. It's an island out in a lake, and you go there for 3 days. The first day, you don't eat, you don't drink, you fast, but once a day you're allowed to eat like dry bread and black tea or black coffee. That's your diet for the 3 days. You must be in bare feet, take off your shoes and socks, and you must pray almost incessantly. I did it once, and it's not easy. It's not easy. It's cold, and if it's raining, it's cold, and if it's warm, you have the bugs, the mosquitoes are eating you alive because you're next to the water. And you can't go anywhere because you're on an island, and you're stuck there, and you sort of pray. And I remember being there thinking, well, what am I doing here? This is nuts. I got to be mad. But you kind of rejuvenate your spirit because you're fasting, and you deny yourself a night's sleep as well. The first night you don't sleep. You sleep the second night. And boy, do you sleep the second night. It's really kind of cleansing physically and spiritually. So he began to do that, and he did it every year for 49 years until he was 74, and he wasn't well enough to do it. And he said that it got more difficult every year. So, if it's tough the first year, So this is the intensity that he's at, tremendous spirit of penance and self-denial and prayer. Absolutely superb, and a great love for Our Lady. So in the early years of the Legion, these are two of the priests, Father Creedon and Father Toher, who are tremendous helps to Frank in the early years of the Legion. They began to visit what's known as the Dublin Union, and the Union really was like hospitals, places for the sick and the destitute who really had nowhere else to go. Really you might say kind of the dregs of society, but not in a derogatory sense, but just simply those who had nothing left and were so poor and so destitute. And they took upon themselves, this first group, they called themselves the Society of Our Lady of Mercy. They went to visit these Union hospitals, and particularly the cancer wards. Edel Quinn now used to make it her speciality to go to the cancer wards, and the patients there used to suffer terribly. I mean, they didn't have anything like the facilities we have nowadays, not even the cleanliness or even the drugs to alleviate pain. Nothing like we have now. And it was very heart-wrenching, difficult work to do. So they already at the beginning were taking on some of the most difficult work available. They began visiting some of the tenements too, the slums, the difficult areas of Dublin. And it came to Frank's attention, I think one house he visited, he realized it was a brothel, actually a house of prostitution. And he was kind of awakened to this problem, that here was this whole area in Dublin where just pure vice and sin and evil. And he said, look, this isn't good enough. We've just got to do something here. So they took it upon themselves to investigate what could be done. And this area he writes about in the book called Miracles on Tap. And he refers to it as Bentley Place. But that's not his real name. I think it's Montgomery Place is the real name. Monto for short. And in Dublin, Monto was known as a place of real vice and evil, because there was contraband, alcohol available at all times, all kinds of illegal wheeler dealing going on. So this particular area was notorious, and Frank writes about this himself. He says, look, this is in the Encyclopedia Britannica as one of the most notorious areas in the world, next to, I think it's Algiers or maybe Morocco, in Africa. That it's just open prostitution which goes on without any restraint, whatever. And so Frank approached some of the local priests and said, look, anybody here going to do anything about this situation and help these poor girls to get out of this situation? And the priest said, oh, no way, we're not going down there. Our reputation, we couldn't be seen down there, right? And people will start talking, And anyway, it's extremely violent down there. People have been known to go down there and not come out alive. You've got to be nuts. So Frank went to the police and said, look, what are you going to do about this? And they said, no, we can't go near that area. It's just as well we have it contained in a nice small area, and then it's not going to spread all over the place. So we just leave well enough alone, and we turn a blind eye, and it's okay, it's fine, don't you worry about it. And besides, look at all the violence down there. You don't want to go near this place. You'll get mugged, you'll get killed, anything could happen. And Frank was like, now hang on a second here. There are souls at stake. This is one of Frank's, he's written an article called Souls at Stake. This is his the whole thrust of his thinking all the time is souls, save souls at all costs. You must go out and contact souls. So he could see the situation. So they said at the Legion meeting, look, we've got to do something. So let's try and visit. So what Frank said, what I'll try and do is I'll see if I can at least get one of the priests to come down with me, and that if I'm seen on the streets with him, then maybe they'll, at least that'll be an introduction for me to the area that I'm with the priest, and they'll know I'm not a client, that I'm with the priest, and that I don't have any plan underfoot or anything. So he went to the priest and said, look, will you do this much with me at least? And the priest says, nope, I'm not going near it, not a chance. Wild horses are going to drag me down to that place. I've got my reputation to think about. So Frank said, okay, we'll have to put it into the hands of Our Lady, and we'll have to do something. So they got the name of one of the girls down there. Mary Tate was her name. In the book he calls her Mary Line, just to change the names. And she was living in number 8. So they memorized this little ditty, Mary Tate of number 8, and they went down the street to visit. And normally they'd visit from door to door, starting at the first door, but this time they went right down the street. They had to find number 8. And they were petrified going down this street, because they knew there was pimps and bullies and all kinds of tough guys around waiting to question anybody who entered their territory. So the first thing they do, they see these guys. They went to early morning when business would obviously be slack, and went down the street, Frank and another lady, legionary, male, female, and went down the street and looking around and wondering what's going to happen next, who's going to come at us here. And next thing, a guy who was leaning, there was guys leaning against walls all over the place, and this guy on near them, leaning against a window, kind of staggered out and made for them, went to go for, and they thought, Frank was getting ready to use that strength of his, and next thing the guy puts out his hand, and he says, Frank Duff, great to meet you, I haven't seen you in ages, and he was full of drinking. He says, you helped me, so many years ago on the other side of Dublin, I really appreciate what you did for me, and he said, this was it. This was the providential opening they needed. The other guys could see, look, this guy is known, he's okay, he's safe, he's fine. Let him get on to do whatever he has to do. So he says, where's number 8? And he showed him down to number 8, went in the door, and the other lady was with him, and they said, we're looking for Mary Tate, is she here? And he said, yeah, come on, and actually she's over here, she's on the bed, and we think she's dying. They went in, and Frank looked, and it was deplorable conditions now. You can imagine the dirt and filth, probably a stench of alcohol around the place. They used to drink methylated spirits. It was awful, and he described some of the circumstances. He said it was like a witch's gathering, He said it was just hideous to behold when they used to do this stuff. But anyway, they were invited in, and the girl said, look, we think she's dying. And they went over, and he looked at her, and she was seriously sick, probably one of the many diseases that the poor girls would catch. And he kind of looked at her and he said, well, what are you going to do? Are you just going to leave her die there like a dog? You've got to do something. And straight away he took command of the situation. So already the roles were reversed. He was in charge now, and it wasn't, he was dictating the pace. So he said, look, we've got to get her to a hospital. So he went outside, he called one of the bullies, one of the guys against one of them. I said, look, you go get a cab. We've got to take this Mary Tate to hospital, and you move it. And the guy, he obeyed immediately. There was no question. He got the cab, brought the girl to hospital, and she survived about 3 or 4 weeks. But in the meantime, she had been brought back to the sacraments, brought back to the faith, and she died a holy death.